Let's talk about raising capital. And you say that raising money is not the end of the story, it's the beginning of the story. Now, for anyone who has an idea, they really are focused on that goal of raising the money. Why isn't it this end of the story? This is what they've been working for and dreaming about the whole time. What is much more to do after that?
Build a business,
Yeah.
actually. I mean, the amazing thing about raising the money is because when you don't have money, that's sort of your number one thing is, oh my gosh, I need to pay the bills, I have mortgage payments, I have employees. So the money is foremost in your mind. But in fact, if you look around at all the businesses you see just walking up and down the street, all of them raise the money. That's just the very first step you take. Once you've got the money, then is the challenge of taking the money and turning it into a real business.
You know, when you say it that way, it becomes crystal clear that, you know, it is a very competitive environment. You must see some very classic mistakes. What's one of the big mistakes you see?
Well, in the fundraising arena, one of the biggest mistakes that I see is people who overly focus on the money, actually. There was a CEO that I worked with his whole thing was, as soon as I get this round of financing, I'll really concentrate on growing the business. But as soon as that round closed, he ramped up his expenses, but then he thought, you know, I'll need another round because I know that I'll run out of money in 6 months. What happened is he went out and got ever successively larger and larger rounds without making sure that the business fundamentals he was building could survive if there became a gap in the financing climate. Mm-hmm. Well, guess what?
It sounds like a lot of the dot-coms that we are so familiar with.
As a matter of fact, this actually was not a .com, but it was internet related. Uh-huh. And a lot of the things, I've been involved with several .coms. What a lot of them have done is, because a lot of them tend to be run by younger people, they don't really know that when you're spending money, yes, it's important to have a beautiful work environment and your foosball table and so on, but ultimately, every one of those dollars that somebody gives you to spend, you have to give back times 10. Which means if that foosball table isn't going to enable you to bring in employees that can produce enough to get the valuation of the 10 times, it's money you probably shouldn't be spending.
Mm-hmm. That's a good equation to actually have in your head. Do you think that maybe because the dot-com kids who started these business could talk business and not have anyone really understand what they were talking about, that they actually had a little bit of a slide here, that they could get by longer?
I actually think a lot of what was driving the internet boom was ignorance on the part of the investing community. I actually come from a technical background, and some of the ideas that were floated out there, if you knew what the lingo meant and if you knew what the technology was, you'd go, you know, now wait a second, if this turns out to be a good idea, any competitor could duplicate it in an afternoon. But the investing community aren't engineers, and they shouldn't be. But in this case, they heard the language, they had nothing but the word of the people giving the pitch that this would be a phenomenal business. And you know, if you don't know the technical details, and you're investing in something that ultimately is based in technology, it's easy to just have to rely on the words of whoever's pitching. Mm-hmm. And if it's a 23-year-old pitching, they may not know enough about business to...
Seriously though, if a 23-year-old can raise $50 million, they got some business skills. Do you think that some of these fundraising skills are translatable into business building skills?
I think they are if you have enough insight. I think there are some people who understand that fundraising is just running a business in and of itself. You're giving a product, your customer is the financial community, your product is your business plan and your business idea, and your measure of success is the ability to raise money. If they think about it that way, and then just apply the same skills, what is the market, what is the product, how do I deliver it, and how do I do it in a way that makes money, they have a chance of being able to make the transition.
One of the things that struck me in actually covering the whole dot-com bubble and the subsequent bursting of the bubble was that a lot of people really weren't held accountable for what they did, that they were winging it. It was a college project for a lot of these guys, literally from their dorm room. And so in the end, the bursting of the dot-com bubble wasn't on their backs, it was on their venture capital backs. Do you think that everyone learned a little bit here? Do you think that venture capitalists and dot-commers learned? And I'm not just pinning it on dot-commers, but it's right. A great example.
I like to hope so. I went to a presentation by a couple of venture capitalists at the height of the boom, where one of them, they were talking and somebody asked, it used to be the case that venture capitalists would apply very rigorous criteria and look at business models. That seemed to have gone out the window. What can you say to that? She looked at the audience and she said, that's a very scary question, and I think it's best left unexamined, because if we examine it too closely, we'll get way too scared.
But you have examined it in depth, and thanks very much for sharing that with us. Steve Robbins, venturecoach.com. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.